All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the wasmCloud community meeting for Wednesday, May the 3rd. I'm going to go ahead and share our agenda really quick. We've got a couple of things on the docket today, a quick demo, and then some updates and discussion. So should be a lot of fun. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick it off. We have one of our community members who came in just a few months ago, Vance, who's going to be doing a demo of what they've been working on, a little SIG scale rating actor in wasmCloud. So Vance, take it away. Stop sharing my thing.
Great. So nice and simple. I assume you can see my screen. Yeah. So what we did was we created an actor. So this rating actor and a provider, which is this prefix table provider. And then of course we're using the HTTP server. And so the HTTP server, we've got a linked definition called NRF. NRF is, did you see this tab change?
Yep. Yeah, it came over well.
Yeah. So this is an API for rating. It's based on the 5G core interfaces for rating. Rating usage in like a 5G core, and so we're going to do a post to rating, and then we get back a rating ref which we can use in the others. And so in prepaid service, you send a rating request, and then you send more rating requests during the session, so that you can be cut off mid-session when you run out of credit. So it's basically prepaid service. So that's basically it. The HTTP requests come in using this NRF protocol, and the rating actor handles it. And then to perform the rating, he's actually going to get that rating identifier from NumberGen, so getting a unique GUID, and then he's going to interact with the prefix tables provider. And so what prefix tables is, and so this provider has been developed with a contract that allows you to create tables and lifecycle manage tables and the rows in the tables. And the rows represent prefixes, and then it's key value in a way. So you're going to get back the value. But what you do is you supply an address, and it will match on a prefix basis, and then the prefixes are different lengths and the addresses are different lengths. And so that's what that provider is doing. And so he's just going to take in the example I'm using here, we're doing a text message. So I'm sending like an SMS, and the destination will be matched against the prefix table to get a rate, and then that rate is returned. And I can just show that happening. Lastly, I've just got a shell script here, so we can run it. Whoops. And yeah, so we've got 201 created back, and you'll see there's a location header. There's the GUID that we pulled out of NumberGen, and we're using CERT JSON in the actor, and we've decoded the JSON payload and provided the JSON payload back, and that's it.
Nice. And Vince, I just have a quick question. When I first heard rating, like I think of rating as like giving somebody 5 stars, like on an Uber driver, thing. Rating in this context, what it seems to have a different connotation. Is it like the cost to like send that message or that data over 5G or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about like in my business, it's communication service providers. They're businesses, they're commercial businesses, right? So we're not giving things away. And like if you have a prepaid cell phone, behind it is an online charging system, and it is every time you're doing something on your phone, that usage is reported, and then the rating engine decides what to charge you for it, and then charges you for it in real time because it's prepaid. So if you run out of, like on Tuesday afternoon, if you run out of credit, then your service is going to stop, right? So that's what this engine does: rating, charging, account balance management. And I just demoed just the rating part of it.
Okay. That's really awesome. Thank you for, I know that we went back and forth in the wasmCloud Slack a little bit talking about link names and getting the right setup, but thank you for demoing it. It's super cool to just see it. Even if it's looking at a plain white terminal with some JSON output, it's cool to see some of this stuff demoed for real.
So the interesting part's the next part, because that provider is really just a fake provider at the moment. It's not, there are no prefix tables. So prefix tables is a capability that 6scale have. It's implemented in Erlang. And so the next job is I need to get that backing capability connected to that provider. And it's like, I'm not going to implement that in Rust. It needs to be connected to the Erlang implementation.
Okay, so it sounds like we should probably, it sounds like a big discussion, but we should follow up on offline about, if we're, of course, wasmCloud supports capability providers written in any language. It's not specific to Rust, but we'll want to follow up on how we could connect that potentially to Erlang. Like you said, the prefix tables is implemented in Erlang and wouldn't want you to have to rewrite that whole thing.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions for Vance? Cool. Well, thank you again, Vance. Great to see the demo. We'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item here. What we have is the WADM 0.4 release update. Last week, we showed a little bit of a demo of WADM working, and as usual, there's always a ton of, there's been a lot of activity in the WADM repo lately, including a couple of issues that have been filed and work that's going in. We just recently released 0.40 Alpha 2, which includes a couple of fixes around making some things in the manifest optional. I'm happy to talk through some of those, but I know that Taylor wanted to give a general update about where we stand. So Taylor, I can keep sharing or I can give it to you.
I'll let you keep sharing, Brooks. You're a great sharer. So anyway, yeah, I just want to give an update on where things are at. So I was out on vacation, so I didn't, and at KubeCon, so I haven't been able to update on this in 2 weeks. So we are there. We're at an Alpha 2 at this point. We have some things in the heads up right there at the very top. You can stay there for a second, Brooks, I guess. And we're just working on fixing a few things around statuses, scaling, algorithm stuff, which is going to require a change to the host. And then I'm currently working on EDE tests right now. Brooks is working on some of that scaling algorithm stuff as well. And then we're just updating things with documentation. And thanks to everyone who has been trying it. We've had a couple of you who are definitely in this call who have been really pounding on it and trying it out. So we really appreciate that. As soon as we get past these last things, we're going to mark it as a full 0.4 release, which means it will be, the reason it's not 1.0, it's going to be production ready, but it's not going to be API stable, if that makes sense. So we might make changes in how we do things. We might change up underlying algorithms, that kind of stuff in future releases, but it will be to a point where people can use it in production. So I just wanted to give people an update that that's where we're at, that like there's still some active work going on. There's a couple different features and things in the issues. If anyone wants to like get started, there's actually a really good starter issue that Brooks opened. No, not that one, the config JSON right there. This is one that we also want to add before we hit 0.4. That's why I signed it in there. This one's actually not too difficult to do if you want to get your hands dirty with some Rust. Or if you're looking to learn for it. So this is definitely a good first issue. If someone wants to get involved right now, just let us know and we'll make sure that it says that, hey, you're assigned to this. We'll let you do it and then we won't accidentally code something on top of you. So that was just the quick update there, Brooks, that I think was just going to be good for everyone to hear where we were at with it. And in case you didn't know, you can run WDAM in pretty much any type of style. So if you go to the release page real quick, Brooks, you'll see that we have all the different architectures right there. So you can run a raw binary. And then if you go back out to the top and into packages, you'll see that we have a Docker image as well. You can click on that so people can see. And we have those available every time we publish domain. We have a canary that goes out, and then we also have the release tags on there. So if anyone wants to try it out, or if they're running things in there, like we have it available in pretty much every form you'd want it. So just so people knew that was there. That'll all be in the docs, but wanted to make that clear. So anyway, that's my update. Any questions from anyone? Okay, thank you.
I'll just add one more thing. I know that one way that we're going to recommend people run WATM will be through Wash. I have this PR out right now for WATM support and Wash app support, and that's actually approved. I'm working on a couple logistics with some other PRs that we have open right now, but essentially what it looks like is, let's see, I don't have instructions in here, but you run Wash up and that will actually run WATM. It'll download the binary and run it in the background. That can of course be disabled, but as soon as this merges, we're going to ask more people to get out and test it, because I think this is going to be a lot easier in terms of, you're not unpacking a tarball. I think we're also going to work to put this into our examples. So like the Pet Clinic Docker Compose, where we have the Postgres database and everything, will probably run WATM as a Docker image or as a Docker container. And that will be the thing that actually starts the actors and providers. So just slowly kind of pushing our examples in this direction, because it's just so nice to be able to say wash app deploy Pet Clinic. It's really fun.
We're doing some pretty complex things too. Brooks didn't mention this, but like Brooks is currently working on for our Cosmonic stuff, he's working on turning all of the components that we run in wasmCloud, which is pretty much most of the Cosmonic platform, into a WDAM manifest, and it's pretty awesome actually. So we're gonna be contributing our own bug fixes and stuff we find as we do those things as well. So trying to keep it as dog fooded as possible as well. So once again, thanks to everyone who has been trying it out, giving us that feedback.
All right. Well, thank you, Taylor. Moving on to the next part of our agenda, kind of pretty quick moving thing today. I wanted to call out one thing. I know that this is more on the Cosmonic side, but of course, every application that you write for Cosmonic is just wasmCloud actors and providers. And so I wanted to call out some of the submissions for the Cosmonic Hackathon, or specifically the winners that came in and that we announced earlier this week. So some of the things that we saw, I won't go super deep into these projects and use cases. You're welcome to check them out for yourself. They are public, but we're really hoping to reach out to some of these people who submitted to the hackathon to hopefully get these contributed as wasmCloud examples. And the reason being, one of the first ones here, this dog the bug hunter. Let me see if I can. I don't think I have the GitHub link. Here it is. I wanted to pull up the architecture diagram because it's really sweet what some of these, like some of the wasmCloud components that came out of this specific contributor, the submitter, created a few actors and a capability provider for grabbing the current system time, which they actually went and contributed to our wasmCloud examples repo. I think that is either merged in now or is ready to go. They also created a SurrealDB capability provider that has its own custom contract for SurrealDB and connects and stores data there. So really hoping to get that turned around as an example that we can give to you all. I also want to call out one of the other two submissions that had really interesting uses of AI. This Dr. Wright submission essentially is prompt engineering would go find, it's a wasmCloud application that would go find research papers. You can select them, and then it will give you a prompt to give to like ChatGPT to summarize the research papers for you. Really slick. And then Mech extension is like a chat edition where you can, and I'll pull up the actual architecture for that as well, because it's really slick to look at. Where was that? Might have just been part of the video. So let me go and pull that up. So it might be a little small actually, but I just wanted to mention that it's using all of kind of like our built-in wasmCloud examples, like Redis, HTTP server, HTTP client, to do like prettifying of language and translations. So you can type out a message and then like translate it to German. It's really slick. So I would highly recommend going to check these out. Of course, everything was hosted on Cosmonic, but it's all wasmCloud under the hood. So really cool submissions to this hackathon. I just wanted to at least call that out. Anybody have any questions before we go on to the next part? Alrighty, then I think the next thing is on me again. So we've been thinking about a couple of things as we push towards stability in wasmCloud. I know that there are a lot of there are frequent fun and breaking changes in the WebAssembly space, and so that's kind of we're keeping an eye on that as we try to push for a wasmCloud 1.0. But some things are a little insulated from that. And as we think about maturity, we were considering the wash command structure. So wash has been around for a couple of years now, pretty much since the beginning of wasmCloud. It's had many breaking changes and commands that change, but some of the feedback that we've gotten just from general community is that some of the subcommands feel complicated. Some of them are pretty well nested, like wash control, get inventory, and then the host ID, or wash control start actor, or wash control link query. Like there are a lot of for subcommand nested things. And in general, some of the commands are kind of available in not the best context. Like some commands were top level commands when they're really only used once or maybe twice. And so I put together a little bit of an RFC. Let me go ahead and ping that in the chat, because the comments are welcome from anyone here, around reworking the command structure. So not a lot of this, a lot of this doesn't change the actual responsibility of Wash. It's still the wasmCloud multi-tool for all things wasmCloud development. But I organized it into a couple of different sections around what I feel like Wash's main responsibilities are, around generate, build, and deploy wasmCloud projects, interact with running wasmCloud applications, bootstrapping wasmCloud runtime environments, like with up and then down to take it down, and then some of the extra stuff around managing settings, wasmCloud cache, downloads from WashUp, things like that. And just to put it all on one page, I wanted to show like what a help text may look like for Wash with this structure. I would love to organize this kind of like a lot of Go CLIs do, like nats and kube control. Wow, I said it wrong. That sucks. Into four main sections: applications, building projects, configuring Wash, and then dealing with runtime environments. So I think that this pushes us a lot closer to stable Wash CLI. Eventually when we push to release a 1.0, I think we're about to be on 0.18. We'll want to have these be stable, because people are going to write scripts on based on these. We already have scripts based on Wash, so the goal would be to make breaking changes now while we can. I wrote out like a full bulleted list. If anybody has like a format for a standard CLI, just full output with every subcommand and flag, please let me know. I'd love to output that as a format. But I wanted to call out a few things in this RFC as big changes, because many things like using build and inspect aren't going to change. But what I did do is get rid of the control subcommand entirely in favor of having simpler top level commands. So instead of doing wash control start actor, I propose that we do something like wash start and then the OCI bindle or file reference. Same with stop. Instead of wash control get inventory or wash control link query, I propose we do wash get links, wash get claims, wash get, and then a host ID for the host inventory, things like that. And I think that this will simplify the usage of wash and will be a little more discoverable for people first using the CLI. Not everything is going to be listed, and the commands that people use most often are kind of readily at your fingertips. I was a little worried about this being a lot of top level subcommands, but organized in this way, I think it actually looks pretty okay. So I got some great feedback from Bailey and Stephen. Thank you all so much for commenting here. This is an awesome. I actually didn't see. Wait, did I like it? Nope, I didn't see this one yet. So I gotta parse that. I'm not gonna do that live. But please feel free to leave comments, comments, questions, things like that on this RFC, especially if you've had a CLI experience, a tool that you've used that you really, really like, because we want to kind of emulate that. So any questions, comments? This is totally good time for people to offer feedback if you thought of it while I was chatting and have it up on the screen.
I'm really excited about it. Thanks for putting that together, Brooke. I think it's where most of us devs live and breathe on the CLI, and getting that experience right is super important. And it's not one of those things that once we get super trained on that we'll ever want to change after the fact. So thank you for all the thought you put into it.
Thanks, Bailey. I know you were on SIG CLI for a little while, so that means a lot. A little while. You were probably on there for years. You were probably the head. Who knows?
Nah, I'm just there, picking on people like Taylor, working on Helm, pushing my customized plot. No, I think the main thing that we learned there is that you want your top level commands to be right, and you want it to be really obvious how to add new commands because they always come up. And I think the scheme that you proposed, and by grouping it, you solve it that way. The other hard lesson learned was about having launching points for plugins early, so that when people start trying to add new types of commands, you get a chance of people actually, using them and experiencing them. But almost always, the first revision of what people thought they wanted was different after the fact.
Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, what Bailey said about the plugins, that's one of the links I shared. I don't completely understand it, but it was like Ditolme created this crate called inventory, and the goal was around making it easier for plugins to integrate into your project. And it's done in a way so that however many people are working on the CLI flags or whatever, it could be like 1,000 people working on it at once, and you won't step on each other's toes. I don't understand it fully. I just thought it's based on G flags, and when you're talking about CLI stuff, I thought this might be of interest. It seemed pretty cool when I was looking at it, but it's above me at this time.
Yeah, this is really neat. I saw you sent this, and I didn't get a full chance to parse it. This is the one, right? This inventory crate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've done a little bit of general brainstorming around what wash plugins would look like. When we were in Amsterdam, actually, I think we had a dinner where a few of us were spitballing some pretty wild ideas. Let's see, Kevin, would you like to share any of those, or would you rather get them into like an RFC?
both actually. I'd like to get it down in an RFC. I think I may actually have it in an RFC sitting around somewhere. Yes, actually I do. It's just not public. Sorry about the cough. I'm exchanging pneumonia with my wife, and we're alternating who's sick. Yeah, so the crazy idea behind the plugins is that Wash could theoretically treat itself as a bare bones WebAssembly host or wasmCloud host, and you could basically write an actor that uses a limited set of interfaces that would be your plugin to Wash. And so you could basically download, Doom.wasm to play Doom inside Wash using a WASI plugin. Or, maybe you could do productive things, but yeah, I'd rather just do Doom.
See, the reason why I'm excited about this is that for the longest time, I believe that WebAssembly is the last plugin model you'll ever need. It's so perfect for that, and us choosing to build something that kind of moves that along is really cool and exciting. Also, I like seeing new places to play Doom.
This is making me think of Jan's comment about like dealing with secrets. So I'll like pause till that, because this sounds like something that could be really applicable there too. That's cool.
Yeah, using I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we use the plugin model other than WebAssembly for Wash. We've gotten some spitballing around it, maybe not anything formal yet. So at risk of derailing the rest of the call, I'll probably propose that we move on, but we should certainly brainstorm about this, especially on ways to get this working. Just to wrap up the Wash discussion, this is in an RFC. There's still a few things to work out there around the command restructure, but what you'll probably see this surface as is probably myself or someone else on the Wash maintainer side will take that RFC, do a first pass of restructuring the commands to kind of be in the format that we like for this RFC, but not necessarily adding anything new. And then another restructure to do that. So this is going to be a breaking change. It won't be the final iteration, but my plan is to maintain backwards compatibility with any scripts that exist today. So things like wash control start actor, if you type that in with this new structure, it would just essentially proxy to wash start. So would love to maintain backwards compatibility for a while. All right. I think we'll go ahead and move on to we're in the second half of the call now. We got a couple more things to talk about, and I want to make sure we leave plenty of brainstorming time for secrets and provider configuration. So Kevin, I don't want to make you talk too much since it sounds like it's your turn to hold the pneumonia ball. But I did want to call out this PR, which I did not review quite yet, around reorganizing some of the wasmCloud documentation. I think around the same vein of us brainstorming, we have certainly been thinking about our wasmCloud docs and how they can be most effective. And so I wanted to give you a chance to call out some of the changes that you've made here. Kevin?
Sure. The basic idea here was to make the documentation more accessible. When we looked at what's out there now and what the new user journey is like for when they first hit the documentation, it didn't seem accessible enough, and it felt like there wasn't a clear path from through the documentation. There were a bunch of places where we had detail on a concept in the reference guide, and then we had high level detail on the same concept somewhere else. And so we've tried to consolidate the various pieces and make sure that, you know, all of the detail is where you need it. And more importantly is that it's trying to give you a progressive buildup of knowledge rather than hitting you right up front with all of the detail. So hopefully what this means is that when people hit the wasmCloud docs, they'll have a much better experience going from, you know, welcome all the way to building real apps.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm having fun on my own doing fancy stuff over here, but on the left I have our current documentation structure, and on the right I have Kevin's proposed changes, which I like a lot. It gets you started and then introduces you to a lot of different, or to the different main wasmCloud concepts. I think you said, Kevin, that before we didn't have a page on link definitions or something until all the way down in the reference, right?
Yeah, you had to go into reference, and then I'm not even sure where it was.
Oh.
There's reference, host runtime, link definitions. One of the symptoms that documentation, or one of the problems that documentation can have, and it's not just ours, it's sort of a trap that everybody falls into, is you write documentation based on the idea that your audience knows where to find the information you're writing. And that doesn't actually do new users any good. So hopefully the new layout is designed so that people can find what they need without knowing what they're looking for ahead of time.
All right. Any questions for Kevin here? Let me go ahead and I'll pull up this PR and again link that in the chat as well, because this is another one of those things that anybody is welcome to comment on. All right. Well, keep an eye out for that. We're going to be doing a little, like Kevin said, this is a lot of reorganization and a couple of empty pages that we're filling out. But we're going to be kind of continually improving the documentation, of course, as time goes on. All right. Now, I wanted to carve out some time to talk about something that we've done a lot of brainstorming in the wasmCloud Slack, and I want to make sure that we have time to discuss it during the community call. The FaceTime is nice for this type of discussion. Stephen has been asking a couple of questions around WADM and around using environment variables to supply configuration. And there's kind of two different angles to go from here. I wanted to talk about the first one, which is just configuration. Things like supplying, actually, if you look at the config JSON issue, this will be a good use for that, where we're providing configuration to a capability provider, something like on the HTTP server, we're supplying what type or what address to listen on, right? This specific IP address and port is configuration, and we may want to, instead of doing a hard-coded value, provide an environment variable. And that way, when you deploy the application or you put the application, you can kind of change that at runtime without editing the manifest. And this is one use case that I think we should definitely support, especially in WADM, where in the actual manifest definition, you can, instead of supplying a direct value, you can add an environment variable. I think another good use case for this would be, and this kind of gets into secret territory, but let's just talk about regular plain text is okay configuration first. You know, this type of URL may change. I would love to be able to put environment variables inside of this manifest. And then I think the right way to do this would be for wash to grab that environment variable, put it in the manifest, and then everything after that uses the value. So that's one side. I think we should absolutely do that, and that can certainly be in the short term. Not dealing with secrets is really well, it's really easy. It's just parsing environment variables. Now, the next part, which is what I've carved this discussion time out for, is, well, what if these values are secret? So when we're configuring the link between an actor and a database capability provider, you probably have to give some kind of secret configuration. So a username, a password, or if you're interacting with an API, a token, or a TLS certificate to use. All of these things are things that are inherently protected with the way that we do link definitions, but not to the rigor of a secret store, especially not the way that you specify them. They're stored in NATS Jetstream, which in order to access the Jetstream key value store, you have to have NATS credentials, and it's not just stored straight up in plain text, things like that. But the secrets management story isn't all the way there. So with that kind of prelude, I want to talk about how we could handle secrets on link definitions or provider config for wasmCloud. And this is just full brainstorm time. I'm happy to say more, but I feel like I've been doing the prelude for a little while. I'd like to actually give it to Stephen to add any more color if you'd like to around the use case and why this kind of came up.
Sure, thank you. I've been trying to think about this a lot because things like API keys and stuff, I imagine, can be pretty important to keep here. And when Johan mentioned the provider yesterday, it had me thinking a lot because I started looking into if it's okay to secure things in environment variables like secrets, and it's even root, if you're not root, you have access to the environment variable file, and it was kind of freaky, and it's trying to see how other things do it. So it's kind of cool to imagine. I'm really liking what was brought up about the WASM plugin, because what I was trying to think about is if you were going to go the provider route, how do you stage it so that maybe if it's a secret extraction provider and you need those secrets before you start up other providers, can you stage it? But then with this whole other thing about plugins, is there a way to use plugins as your secret interface? And then it's you have different plugins for your different secret management tools. So whether it's AWS or HashiCorp Vault, or you just want to do it locally, I don't know. It kind of lets it be modular. The alternative was, I don't know, trying to use whatever you get over the wire and then encrypting it and storing it in Jetstream. That seems like it wouldn't necessarily be very modular. So I don't know. It's been fun to imagine, but I'm a little out of my depth here, so it's kind of cool to think about.
Johan, I know you dropped a lot of cool feedback around the way that you do it in Kubernetes. Did you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I brought up is kind of having a meta provider, a little bit the capability to have an interface to get to secrets in some form or the other. And I think for broader adoption of wasmCloud, it's necessary to acknowledge that there are already things out there that people use, like AWS Secrets Manager or Vault, right? And they have some stuff attached to it, like rotation of keys and passwords and logic behind it already. And I don't think it's people will necessarily change that. And it's also compliance and stuff. There's so much stuff in there, right? And right now it's a very low key entry. You paste your passwords or secrets into the link, right? And hope that it's stored in a safe way, right? And right now it's in Jetstream. That's reasonably safe, but do people trust it? So this is my first gut feeling was, oh, I'm posting here my things. I can't push that out to somewhere because they're real secrets I used, right, for the testing. So I see Jetstream as necessary to distribute secrets and to cache it, but not necessarily as the secrets management and storage solution. So that's where this meta provider came up. So provider for link definitions, right?
Kevin, I think you beat me on the hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, in case people hadn't seen it, is that I don't know where it is in the roadmap, but NATS is actually planning on making it so that you can encrypt Jetstream at rest. So if you store things as a key value bucket, or even just a regular stream full of arbitrary data, the goal is that you can just turn on encryption in the server, and it'll store it both on disk and in memory in an inaccessible format. There's yet another level of paranoia, which involves making sure that the memory space that a wasmCloud host consumes doesn't actually contain any plain text secrets, which is, with chat is hilarious, which is it's a different level for a different level of security. So the meta provider idea is kind of cool. I'll have to noodle on that a bit, but I think one of the I had a point, but the dogs are barking and I can't remember. Yeah, I think there's just different layers, and I think as long as we make sure that the layers are stackable and don't interfere with each other, then I think we'll have a decent story around secret link defs.
Yeah, I think the idea of a meta provider is super interesting, because I also hit this this issue, I think a week or two ago, or not issue, but like this desire for a feature, which was, I was trying to come up with a way to do an internal registry. Oh, Brooks, did I jump you in the line? I'm sorry. Do you want to go? Oh, okay. So I'm so sorry. I got so excited. But this idea of some sort of like meta provider, or even being able to, I think plugins is also kind of towards this idea of like, what if I could replace fundamental pieces of wasmCloud with something that can plug in, or implement a trait or an interface or something like that, and then, oh, now my secrets they're backed by ACM. Or, oh, now my registry, I don't need to worry about a Docker registry somewhere. The fact that one of the nodes on my network has the creds that can authenticate to a registry and then pull those bytes down, like, means pretty much any of them in the lattice can do this. And I think that's some of that is the fact that NATS is so magical, and it gets us this like secure foundation and messaging layer. And I think that like the more that I think we're going to see this pattern. So like there's two right now. We've got secrets, and then registries was my personal example. Like, I don't think that we should have to add a case statement every single time that we want to add a new type of actor that we want to implement. Like, maybe that's an interface that we implement, and then, or sorry, maybe that's an interface that we define, and then it's like easily discoverable in docs. And it's like, oh, you have a new registry type that, or you even want to implement one yourself, just implement this interface and it works. Yeah, I think that, that's two examples in recent memory where we've seen this like desire for a meta provider, or maybe even just a pattern to get us to a place for specific fundamental pieces of wasmCloud.
Yeah, so I did ask around in the NATS Slack about this type of encryption, and they talked about encryption at rest. You can enable that. They still recommend doing file system encryption, which is fine. Do in defense in depth. But one of the things that they also recommended as an alternative to encryption at rest is, essentially when a secret value comes into your system in the wasmCloud ecosystem, when we do a link put with secret configuration, essentially the recommendation was to use an encryption key there to encrypt it. And then when you actually need to pull the value out and hand it to a capability provider or something, that's where you decrypt it. I think we can probably get into the technical discussion later. It's a little different from brainstorming, but what I'm trying to think about as we talk about different ways to maybe do a meta provider or different ways to keep secret values secret. There's the point where you have a secret value and you need to give it to a wasmCloud system so that it can reference that secret value later. And then when you actually need to use that secret. And those seem like complicated areas. We do a lot of our communication over NATs. So if we were to try and use a secret provider like the AWS Secrets Manager or HashiCorp Vault, wherever we're actually, if we used a secret reference, whenever we need to pull that secret value out, it would need to have a direct connection to that secrets manager. And that's something that sounds hard to do in a really clean way across a really distributed system. Since like, if you're running a capability provider on an edge device, it probably doesn't have a direct connection to your AWS Secrets Manager, things like that. So that's kind of one reason why I've gravitated in the direction of doing something like encrypting and then storing in Jetstream. But then you still have the problem of distributing around encryption keys. And so that sounds like we're trying to build a secrets manager out of NATs, and that's a whole separate rabbit hole. So I don't have any concrete suggestions there, just further in the conversation. These are some of the things that I've been thinking about when going across this discussion.
I think I'm next. I think there's a lot to learn from why we had to have different types of secret managers in the Kubernetes world, because so many people have policies that are specific to where their secrets have to be stored. And so that being pluggable is, I think, key. So we can't actually be too opinionated here, is one thought. If we want to bring those people over, building a bridge from where they are to wasmCloud. But the thing that I've been thinking about a lot, you said brainstorm, so here's the thing that I think a lot about is like, this is part of wasmCloud, but really at a layer below, when we're building things with components and we're assembling different pieces of our app actor, our actor component, it will have other components that I don't want to necessarily have all of the secrets. And so what I'm thinking about there is, let's say I've got a piece that handles logging, like my logging component, even if it's a built-in, and even if it's part of wasmCloud and it's trusted and everything, I still don't want it to be able to even pull off of the context all the secrets that are for like my database provider and everything else. There's so much more that we can do now with the component abstraction that we weren't able to do with application, well, today, right? Because the component model is not exactly here yet. And so I want to make sure that whatever we design isn't just a grab bag. Like we're doing a really good job of having links that are specific to capabilities. And I want to make sure that that level of granularity persists even internal to a single intercomponents that make up a single actor component.
But yeah, I think I'm next. So with having not a grab bag, I agree. And I thought in my head, and I don't know every detail of wasmCloud yet, so bear with me, was kind of on a link. You have a link to that provider, right? You can basically say, okay, for this link, I use HashiCorp Vault, right? You link to that provider, and then you have this interface where you can get your secrets. And how that works in the background, I think needs to be over NATs, because you cannot predict where the actor is going to be. It doesn't have direct connection to the provider or to some API external. So the only way to make that really work, I think, is currently NATs under the hood. Yeah, and the other side of it is then how do you define that interface? And that's, I think, is one is the interface just for the call. It's kind of key value store, right? Somewhat. But also, how do you define what secret you want to reference? And different secret provider have different ways of having an ID for the secret, right? And that's another thing where we internally use some convention over configuration, right? We came to a standardized way from our consumer side, right? Yeah, that's all I want to say. I have other ideas, but let's wait and see. Who's next?
I don't know who put up their hand next, but I'll go if no one else wants to, because it kind of aligns with that. So like what I'm thinking too is if you're doing it through like a link definition and then you're able to have multiple providers, then it's easy for a user to be able to say, I'm working with HashiCorp Vault, you just use the Vault provider. I'm working with AWS Secret Manager, you use the Secret Manager provider, and then the interface just gives it to like wasmCloud, Watum in the same manner that it can process, but how you deal with those secrets is done in the provider. So taking those formats that are output, but it might also be interesting that if you can manage the link name or the name of the provider to break it down for specific features. Like I imagine you're going to not want to give access to like your entire secret manager vault to a single provider. So it would be nice to be able to say, you know, this microservice or this function has access to this namespace of secrets. And you can do that right through hopefully the name or the link definition name, which was really cool.
I would want to come back, and I think Bailey really nailed it on, you know, this is a solved decision for many organizations, and the, you know, pluggability and frankly support for Vault and AWS Secret Manager is probably like what an MVP looks like here, because those are that's gonna cover, you know, 80% of the market or more on day one, and that would give us an established pattern to sort of make sure that it shows up here. Because yeah, possibly Okta and OnePass. What I've seen on the enterprise side is almost exclusively Vault. You know, I mean, I've only seen a handful of enterprises go AWS Secret Manager, but that's like, you know, that's my just personal anecdote to be on there.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, Liam, and kind of touches on one of the things that we started talking about too, which is how to properly store secret things in NATs. And the answer is, you're probably right. It's not that. It's using the well-established secrets providers because that's what people are already going to be using. I feel like I raised my hand with an idea in mind. And I don't remember exactly what it is. So, Johan, if you want to go ahead, I'll try to think of what I was going to say. Oh, and you're still on mute. Oops.
Just want to add that HashiCorp Vault and AWS Secrets Manager as a kind of enterprise level thing is absolutely necessary. But to have this low entry barrier, to not think about secrets management too much, but still be reasonably secure. NATS, key value store, as a secrets manager, kind of as a provider, should also be kind of available. So people can, without any big configuration of any secrets manager, get into wasmCloud, right? The other thing is that it's also, I think, important how then those secrets are provided to the actor, actually, how they surface in the actor, how you make that available, right? There's also this level of is there environment variables kind of thing, right? Where you have the risk of being logged, or is it like, I come from a Kubernetes where like mounted like a file, what we do, right? To also let the actor read it. And so you can actually rotate everything without restarting the pod. Now, this is not so relevant in wasmCloud, but might be a thought. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a running wasmCloud as a container in a pod is, right now our recommended Kubernetes strategy. So I think it's really valid to go at it from that angle. Okay, well, we're getting to the end here. I'm gonna try to summarize where we've gotten with this discussion, so we could go back later and maybe turn this into like an RFC or a little more formal, so that we can keep brainstorming. We certainly need to have a way for components in wasmCloud to be able to access secrets. That comes in a couple of different forms. Actors may need to be able to reference secrets. Capability providers may need to be able to reference secrets. And there's going to be difficulties around how we actually take a secret from an external world or a reference to a secret value, whether that's a WADM manifest or a wash command, and then turning it into something where the wasmCloud runtime itself can pull out of a secret store to give that value to the actor or the capability provider. But that being said, the first class kind of citizens that we should consider supporting will probably be some kind of middle ground secure of NAT's key value store, something that can be encrypted at rest, but may not be a fully managed secret store. HashiCorp Vault because of its prevalence in the ecosystem, and then maybe AWS Secrets Manager. And designing for these a couple of different use cases will give us a nice generic look of what the generic requirement will have to be. There's a lot of questions around how we can give certain components access to certain secrets. We don't want to blow up our capability model by saying once you have access to the secrets, you can have all the secrets. But more discussion and brainstorming and how to do that will follow. Let's see. Only other thing I can add is that this, I guess, maybe doesn't necessarily get easier or harder, but there's more facets to it once we start talking about WASM components, because you want your application component to have access to a secret, but maybe not the components that you pull in from public registries that implement certain pieces of functionality. Liam, you want to add on a little more there?
I'm sorry, I know we're at time, but Bailey, I would love to hear the thinking on how this becomes a capability grant to each component. That's what I feel like the sort of like each secret then should be granted as a capability, or would it be? Maybe that's a question to sort of noodle on how that might manifest itself there. Right? That now, I can't believe it took us that long or maybe it was said earlier and I missed it. But I feel like that feels like the right pattern, that this is just another, a secret shows up then as a capability grant that you can then give to a component. What a great meeting today. I mean, this one's just chock full.
Jordan, I wanted to throw in your comment at least before we exit. Do you want to say it? Do you want me to say it? Do you want me not to say it?
Yeah.
Okay. Jordan left a comment that I want to make sure we capture, that essentially what wasmCloud should be trying to do on this topic is create an interface in order to access and manage secrets. And outside of that, leave the hard things like secrets and encryption and everything to the professionals. I think that's a good thing to keep in our mind, so we don't over-engineer this and try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, I know it's hard right now because we don't have all those professionals like writing providers yet, but it will come. If we shore up the interfaces, give them something really solid to build on, it will come. But yeah, to your point, maybe there needs to be like a wasmCloud built-in secret that sticks things in KV store, but needs to have a big old disclaimer: don't use this in production until NATS or Synadia says this is a production SOC compliant certified place to keep secrets. Until then, you just can't.
Yeah, very true. Well, thank you, Jordan, for that perspective. It's a great point. I think we're going to continue to work on this and brainstorm on the issue in the WADM repository because that's where it started. We may end up moving that into the wasmCloud/wasmCloud repo because it kind of affects the whole ecosystem, but we'll kind of approach that from there. I know that we're over time. Thank you everybody for staying over a little bit. I really appreciate you spending the time to come and chat, and I really loved the brainstorming session today. This was really productive and really fun to chat through. I think we'll go ahead and end the call here, and then as usual, everybody's welcome to hang out for a little bit if we wanted to chat a little bit more. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Talk to you later.